All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone, for another Why Would You Use? So today we are going to be talking about the Catabolyst in direct contrast with the Proboscis Cernus from yesterday. This weapon is a brand new secondary, and it's got some unique functions. First and foremost, it is a beam weapon, which is quite good. But on top of that, whenever you need to reload this weapon, it is a grenade launcher. So reloading is also an attack, and whenever you're reloading from empty, which we just saw there, it is a much longer throw and reload from whenever you are reloading from a partially empty clip. So you can use this in a variety of different ways, but there is a trade-off in damage from your reload on this weapon. So looking at it, if we look at the build, there's absolutely nothing unique here. This is the secondary weapon, what has crit on it build, and because this weapon is a beam weapon that fires incredibly fast and ticks very fast, the 31.6% critical chance is totally serviceable, and it has a nice critical multiplier as well. But the major thing here is that it has 94.6% status, and that's only with two 60/60 mods on it. This very high amount of status is going to allow this to stack absolutely obscene amounts of procs on everything that the beam touches. In addition to that, we have the reload from empty modifiers, which very important here. You get a huge boost to your critical chance and a moderate boost to your status chance. So very consistent on critting whenever you're reloading from empty, and this is going to do pretty considerably high damage as well. Whereas in contrast, the partial reload is going to keep the regular stats from the primary fire. So at a 31.6% crit chance, it's going to be much, much less consistent with that explosion doing large amounts of damage because significantly reduced crit chance. Who knew? I will say the partial reload is fine, but usually you really do want to empty the magazine and use the reload from full or reload from empty damage and consistency of this weapon. Also, this weapon empties its magazine pretty fast, so there's really no reason to reload in the middle. With that being said, this weapon has a specific use case that we are going to go over after the initial showcase of it, and that is that it's really good at killing high-level enemies or enemies that are vulnerable to status but just take an obscene amount of damage, or like they need all their armor and stuff removed, because this weapon is built, as you saw, corrosive viral heat. Having corrosive viral heat and a large amount of status means that you're going to max out on corrosive procs and viral procs very, very fast for a huge reduction in armor and a huge uptick in health damage. And then you're just going to stack heat procs, which will reduce the armor even further and do a huge amount of damage when stacked high enough. So in the regular test against these enemies, I will say this weapon is best paired for a kind of all-over experience with one of the glaives, so that you can use that large amount of AoE damage very consistently to kill weaker groups of enemies, and then focus your Catabolyst fire on enemies that the glaive can't take care of, which, of course, I know are few and far between because the glaive is very, very good now, but this is a fantastic weapon to pair with it for the few targets that you're going to want this type of effect on. Luckily, the changes to glaives and this came together in one patch. What a coincidence. So we're going to drop this in at level 80, and this is going to be fairly easy. I will say the range on this weapon can hurt sometimes, but for the most part, it is going to just absolutely chew through the important units, and the reload is going to chew through the unimportant units, and it's not going to be a real problem at all. You can get caught out with this weapon because it is, you know, mostly single target outside of the little bit of punch through that it has, but that punch through, I will say, has helped me a lot with just being able to, you know, hit a couple enemies in a line. Sometimes that's really all it takes, is just hitting a couple enemies in a line for the experience to be much, much better. You can see, especially getting the headshots, just absolutely decimates these enemies. It is no contest whatsoever. But, like I said, this is actually the job that I think this weapon is worse at than its much more specific job, which we only kind of have one real way to show off, and that is to get some Exo Gokstat officers in here. We're going to grab 4 of them, and we're going to make ourselves invincible because we're going to add 100 levels to them. These are level 180 Exo Gokstat officers. The important stuff about this is that these are extra tough enemies that usually will only spawn once in a mission and actually cannot actually spawn at this level. They are much tougher than any enemy that you're usually going to be fighting in the steel path outside of going for quite a while in some of the endless modes, which, of course, as of the Deimos Arcana patch, there's no reason to do anymore. Before that, this should pretty much cover you in finding out if this weapon can handle the enemy that you're looking to shoot it at. Here we go. The answer, for those of you that have not figured it out, is that it's no problem at all. It chews through all their armor and everything and just gets rid of them. Also, the grenade still does pretty reasonable damage, even at this level. And if you're getting the headshots, it's really no contest. Like, the amount of status that you're applying here, they can't handle it. It reduces everything about them to dust. It does not care what your resistances are. If you fire this at extremely high level Corpus, they don't have armor, but they do take heat damage. So they'll evaporate as well. It pretty much doesn't matter what you're going to shoot this at. It's not going to like it. It's going to hate it. Explicitly, it's going to hate it. Because it turns out stacking tens, if not hundreds, of heat procs, depending on the toughness of the target, means that target's going to die. In nearly 100% of cases. So yeah, that's the Catabolyst. It's an absolute fucking monster, but only in the really specific use cases for it. Like I said, just to reiterate, I would really advise pairing this with a glaive of some description, or just a good melee weapon in general, as that is where it really shines, and it can replace some of the primary weapons that kind of do this job, like the Phantasma, which I think, personally, that the Catabolyst does it better, but, of course, there's the trade-off of the primary weapons kind of only having that effect in their slot, so unless you are trying to mess around with some other primary weapon and you need this effect, maybe there's not a ton of reasons to use this as opposed to a much higher damage weapon. But all these trade-offs and things you guys can figure out for yourselves. I will see you later. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.